It wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. It was a joke. Stupid, reckless dare. Two best friends. One forbidden temptation. He was old enough to be our father, but that only made it worse. What started as a joke turned into something we couldn't stop. And once we crossed the line, there was no going back. Things are getting interesting, right? If you're loving this story, show some support, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It really helps keep these stories coming. Now let's get into the story. His name was Greg, the man next door. The one who always smiled, always made us laugh, but we never thought of as more than a friend, until recently. I knew he was attractive, there was no denying it. He had that easy confidence that made women flock to him and men look up to him. Tall, dark hair with just a hint of silver around the temples. A jawline that could cut glass. And those eyes, those piercing eyes that seemed to see right through you. The problem wasn't him, though. The problem was his wife. Let's call her Lillian. She was everything I hated. Loud, obnoxious, and always poking her nose into our business. It wasn't that I didn't like Greg, because I did. He was always polite, respectful. And every time he stopped by, I couldn't help but feel a tingling in my chest. It felt risky, dangerous, and much older than us. But that only made it worse. Still, he had this thing about him that pulled me in. I wasn't the only one who noticed, either. My best friend Bella and I talked about him all the time. We couldn't help it. Do you ever think about what it would be like to be with him? Bella had asked one night, her voice low, her eyes narrowed with curiosity. I felt my cheeks flush. No way. He's married, Bella. And way too old. Age is just a number, she teased. And I don't see a ring on his finger when he's over here. I'd laughed it off, but there was something about that conversation that stayed with me. A few days later, I'd noticed him outside, smiling as we exchanged pleasantries. His gaze lingered a little too long. It wasn't just a friendly smile anymore. There was something else in his eyes. And it made me feel like I was floating. Started out as a joke. Stupid, reckless dare. We were sitting in the living room one Friday night, drinking wine, talking about life. About men. Wouldn't it be crazy, Bella said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, if we made a move on Greg? My stomach flipped. Are you out of your mind? She swirled her wine glass, watching me over the rim. Come on. You've seen the way he looks at us. Scoff. He's married. Bella just shrugged, her lips curving. So? He sure doesn't act like it. I stared at her, trying to decipher if she was joking or serious. But when she raised an eyebrow, I realized she wasn't kidding. Bella, no. I said again, but this time there was doubt creeping into my voice. The idea was ridiculous, right? But somehow it felt a little too good to ignore. Bella didn't stop there. I dare you, she said, her tone light but with a spark of mischief in her eyes. I dare you to get him into our apartment. Maybe we both try him. Come on, you know he's into us. What's the worst that could happen? I laughed nervously. The dare was ridiculous. No way I could do that. I was way too shy and this was too dangerous. But Bella's grin never wavered. What's the matter? Are you scared? And that's when I knew I had to do it. We both had to. The days leading up to the dare were filled with a mix of excitement and dread. I could barely sleep. The idea of getting Greg into our apartment playing over and over in my mind. What if he said no? What if things went too far? But on the other hand, what if it worked? What if we actually did this? The tension between us, Bella and I, had only grown. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I wanted to go through with it. I didn't just want to see if I could get him in bed. I wanted to feel it. To experience something wild. Something I never thought I'd do. So we came up with an excuse. The dishwasher broke. Simple. Logical. Something that wouldn't raise suspicion. I could feel my heart racing as I texted Greg, asking him if he could come over to take a look. My palms were sweaty, and my breath came in short bursts. I hit send. Bella and I exchanged a look, both of us knowing what this meant. It was happening. I had no idea what I was doing. But at this point, Could I even stop? What would you have done? My hands felt clammy. Check my phone. No new text. What if he saw right through us? What if this all crashed and burned before it even started? A knock at the door. My breath caught. Bella shot me a knowing glance. This was it. He was standing there, wearing a faded blue shirt and jeans, with that same confident smile. "Hey," he said, his voice warm. "I hear there's a problem with your dishwasher." I swallowed hard, trying to ignore the nervous flutter in my stomach. "Yeah, it's been acting up," I said, moving aside to let him in. Bella was already sitting on the couch, her eyes wide, but her lips pressed into a tight smile. "Thanks for coming over," I said, trying to sound normal. Greg smiled again, stepping inside. The tension between us was palpable, like a magnetic force pulling us together, and I could feel the air thickening with every passing second. He crouched by the dishwasher, inspecting it with the same focus he applied to everything he did. And that's when I noticed it. His hand brushed against my leg as he moved past me. I froze, not sure if I imagined it. But then I saw Bella's eyes. She was staring at me, almost daring me to do something. I took a deep breath and whispered, "Should we celebrate after this? A drink, maybe?" Greg looked up, his eyes locking with mine. "Sure, why not?" Greg stayed for a drink after fixing the dishwasher, just like we'd planned. But what we hadn't planned for was the shift in the air between us. The subtle, almost electric tension that seemed to grow with every passing second. Bella, never one to hold back, leaned in a little too close, laughing a bit too loudly at Greg's jokes. I could see her testing the waters, her fingers brushing against his leg as she giggled. I felt my heart racing, but I couldn't look away. I'd always known Bella was the bolder one of us. She had a way of getting what she wanted without hesitation. Greg smiled at her, clearly amused, but I saw the change in his eyes. His attention was fully on her now. A soft spark of interest I couldn't ignore. He was still polite, but there was something deeper there. Something unspoken. Bella leaned in, her lips brushing against his ear, voice dripping with mischief. "You know, I've always thought you were handsome, Greg." His jaw clenched slightly, his fingers curling into a fist against his thigh. For a second I thought he might shut it down. His jaw tensed. I could see the war playing out behind his eyes, the right thing, the dangerous thing. For a moment, I thought he was about to push Bella away. But then he exhaled, slow and deep, his gaze flicking between us. The corner of his mouth lifted just slightly. "Is that so?" She nodded, not breaking eye contact. And then, her lips curled into a playful grin. "Yeah," she murmured. "And maybe I want to see what else you've got going for you." My heart skipped a beat. Heat surged through me, and despite myself, I found myself leaning in too, drawn to the energy between them. I couldn't just sit here and pretend it wasn't happening. The desire was too real, too palpable. Bella, ever the bold one, turned her gaze to me, that mischievous glint shining in her eyes. "You know, you've always thought he was handsome too," she teased, her voice almost a whisper, daring me with her words. "Come on, don't be shy. Why don't we both get a little closer?" I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. Bella's hand found mine, pulling me toward them before I could even process it. I couldn't deny it anymore. The tension was too thick, too undeniable. I stood up, legs shaky, my heart racing as I got closer. Bella's hand slid around Greg's shoulder, pulling him into a kiss, deep and slow. And I found myself frozen. But when she pulled away, she smiled at me, eyes glinting with challenge. "Your turn," she said softly. I didn't expect it to happen this fast. One second I was hesitating, overthinking everything, what this meant, what it would feel like. And the next, I wasn't thinking at all. Bella kissed me like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. Soft at first, teasing, drawing me in. But the second she felt me relax, she took it further, deepening the kiss, pulling me closer. I felt her fingers sliding through my hair, tilting my head just the way she wanted. She liked being in control. I could feel it in every deliberate movement she made. And Greg, he was right there, watching, waiting. His hands were on me, firm, grounding, like he wasn't just touching me but claiming me. Bella's fingers slid beneath my shirt, nails dragging just slightly. A teasing contrast between rough and soft. "You don't have to hold back," she whispered, her breath warm against my skin. "We want to hear you." Greg's hands found my waist, his grip sure, knowing. "She's trembling," he murmured, half amusement, half desire. "She just needs encouragement," Bella teased, pressing closer. "Let's give her some." And then she moved. Her hands, her lips, her body pressed against mine. It was sensory overload in the best possible way. I felt her breath against my neck. Felt Greg's hands tighten on my waist. The way his body crowded behind me, strong and steady. I had never been touched like this before. Like they knew exactly what I needed. Like they had been waiting for this as much as I had. Greg's hands roamed lower, his grip sure, knowing. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask permission. He could feel it. I wanted this. I wanted him. Bella's lips brushed against my ear. "You don't have to hold back, you know," she whispered, her voice smooth, coaxing. "We want to hear you." I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until I let out a shaky exhale. Bella grinned. "That's better," she murmured, her hands sliding lower, testing, teasing. "You feel better." Greg groaned, low in his throat, his grip tightening as he pulled me back against him. "She feels incredible," he muttered. I gasped, my hands gripping at them both. Bella in front of me, Greg behind. The heat of them, the strength of them, the sheer intensity of it all. I felt like I was drowning in it, like I was being completely consumed. And I didn't want it to stop. Bella's fingers trailed down my arm, her touch featherlight, electric. "You like this, don't you?" she asked. But she already knew the answer. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes." Greg exhaled sharply, his lips grazing my shoulder. "Good." Bella's eyes gleamed, victorious. "Then let's see just how much you can take." And after that, there was no more hesitation. No more thinking. Just heat. Just hands. Just the feeling of being completely lost between them. The morning after, the three of us sat in the dim light of the living room, wrapped in silence. But not regret. Greg leaned back against the couch, his arm draped lazily over the backrest, his fingers just barely grazing my shoulder. Bella stretched like a cat beside me, her smirk unapologetic, satisfied. No one spoke at first. We didn't need to. The tension between us wasn't gone. It had only changed. It wasn't just desire anymore. It was understanding. Bella was the first to break the quiet. "So," she mused, glancing between us, that mischievous glint back in her eyes. "Now that the ice is broken, what do we do next?" Greg chuckled, shaking his head. But his eyes lingered on me a little too long. I already knew the answer. Because this wasn't a one-time thing. It was the beginning of something else entirely. And none of us were about to stop. Well, that escalated quickly. But what do you think? Should we have walked away? Or were we already too far gone? And be honest, if you were in my position, would you have done the same? Tell me in the comments. I want to know what you would have done. And if you want to hear what happened next, you know what to do. Subscribe. And hit that notification bell. Because trust me, this was just the beginning. See you on the next video.